Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into a pretty important year for the Baha'i Faith.
1996.
That's right. We've had a lot of requests to kind of dig into this year.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to dive in with you, especially because it seems like a topic you're particularly interested in exploring.
Right.
So basically, 1996 is considered to be a real turning point for the Baha'i community.
Definitely.
You know how it kind of shifted gears and blended its spiritual core with some seriously innovative administrative changes. And our source material is fascinating. We've got excerpts from a document titled Pasted Text.
Wow.
So yeah, buckle up because we're about to uncover why 1996 is considered to be such a turning point for the Baha'i community.
It is fascinating, isn't it, how a community can adapt and evolve, but at the same time, stay true to those core beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a living organism almost, isn't it?
It is.
But before we jump into 1996, let's set the stage a little bit. How did Baha'i administration work in the early days?
Well, the writings of Baha'u'llah, Abdul-Baha, and Shoghi Effendi provided a framework,
Okay.
And it was both democratic and theocratic in a sense. They emphasized building local and national spiritual assemblies.
Right.
And these you can think of as like the foundational building blocks of the global administration.
Okay, so these assemblies were crucial right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
I think what I find really intriguing is that they were designed to be both spiritual and administrative.
Right.
And that's not something you see in every religious tradition. What was the thinking behind that dual role?
Yeah, it's a reflection of the Baha'i belief in the interconnectedness of the material and the spiritual realms.
Right.
So the assemblies aren't just meant to manage those day-to-day affairs, They're also tasked with fostering the spiritual development of the community,
Right.
but also channeling its energies towards service to humanity.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like they're weaving together the practical and the spiritual,
Yes.
which seems very fitting given the Baha'i emphasis on the unity of all things.
Yes, exactly.
So we got these assemblies, and then what? How did the Baha'i community start to grow and spread its wings?
Well, throughout the mid-20th century, there was a huge push for global expansion.
Okay.
Things like initiatives like the 10-Year Crusade,
Right.
which focused on taking the faith to new countries and continents, planting those seeds for future growth.
Wow, a global movement. It's amazing to think about how quickly the Baha'i faith spread across the world.
It is.
But it wasn't just about converting people, was it?
You're right. The focus wasn't just on numerical growth.
Okay.
The concept of consolidation was also key, making sure that new communities were strong and could flourish.
Right.
And this is where the Rui Institute comes into play, emerging in the 1980s in Colombia.
Ah, the Rui Institute. That's a name I've heard, even outside of the context of the Baha'i faith.
Yeah.
They're known for their pretty innovative approach to education and community building, right?
Absolutely. They developed a system of study and service that empowered individuals within their communities. It was incredibly effective, and its impact started to spread even back then.
Okay, now I'm seeing how all these pieces are starting to fit together. You've got these assemblies laying the groundwork.
Right.
This global expansion effort
Yeah.
taking root. And then the Rui Institute comes along with this fresh perspective.
Yeah.
It's like the perfect storm brewing. Which leads us to 1996.
Yeah.
What made this year such a turning point?
Well, in 1996, the Universal House of Justice, which is the global governing body of the Baha'i Faith, they unveiled a bold new framework for action.
Yeah.
And also a 4-year plan.
Now we're getting to the juicy stuff.
Yeah.
This is where things get really interesting.
Yes.
So tell me, what exactly changed and why was this shift so monumental?
Well, the most significant change was a radical move towards grassroots empowerment.
Okay.
So instead of top-down planning, the focus shifted to giving individuals and local communities the tools and the support they needed to drive their own growth and development.
Wow, that's a pretty bold move.
It was.
It's like flipping the pyramid, right?
Yeah. Instead of power flowing downwards, it's coming from the ground up.
Exactly.
I can only imagine that must have ruffled some feathers within the existing structures.
You're right. It wasn't a seamless transition. There were definitely growing pains as the Baha'i community adapted to this new decentralized approach.
Sure.
But there was also a palpable sense of excitement and possibility. It was a chance for individuals to step up, take ownership of their faith and its impact on the world around them. It really was a remarkable shift. And to implement this new approach, they introduced the concept of clusters.
Okay.
These were geographic and social units, and they became like focal points for action.
So instead of centralized decision-making, you had these smaller, more localized groups taking charge.
Exactly.
It sounds almost like a network with each cluster acting as a node.
Yeah.
Interconnected, but also autonomous.
That's a great analogy. Each cluster was encouraged to identify the needs of its community and develop strategies for addressing them.
So imagine, like a neighborhood or a village where Baha'is are working together to build a vibrant community life.
Right.
Focusing on service education and spiritual development.
I'm starting to see how this grassroots approach could lead to more organic and sustainable growth.
Right.
But I'm curious, how did this impact the existing administrative structures? Did the assembly still play a role?
Absolutely. The assemblies remained essential. In fact, their role became even more vital in supporting and guiding the clusters.
Right.
Think of them as mentors and facilitators.
Okay.
Providing resources, training, and encouragement.
So it wasn't about dismantling the existing system, but rather about creating a more dynamic and collaborative relationship between the assemblies and the grassroots.
Exactly. It was about leveraging the strength of both centralized and decentralized approaches.
Okay.
So the assemblies provided a framework for unity and coherence,
right,
while the clusters brought local knowledge, passion, and initiative to the table.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act. Were there any challenges in getting this new system up and running?
Of course, anytime you introduce such a significant change, there are bound to be challenges.
Right.
One of the biggest hurdles was overcoming the inertia of the old ways of doing things.
Okay.
Some people were hesitant to embrace this new framework, while others were eager to jump in, but lacked the necessary skills and training.
I can imagine that training must have been crucial, especially with this new emphasis on grassroots leadership.
Absolutely.
Did the Rui Institute play a role in that?
A major one. Remember, the Rui Institute had already developed a highly effective system for training individuals to serve their communities.
Right.
Well, in 1996, they expanded their efforts globally.
Okay.
They established training institutes all over the world.
Wow.
And these institutes offered structured courses designed to deepen people's understanding of the Baha'i teachings, but also to equip them with practical skills for community building.
So it wasn't just about learning the theory. It was about gaining practical skills that they could apply directly within their clusters.
Precisely. The courses covered everything from teaching children's classes to facilitating study circles to engaging in social action projects.
So it was a holistic approach.
Yes.
Aimed at empowering individuals to become active agents of change in their communities.
That's a great way to put it.
It sounds like they were creating a pipeline for leadership.
Yeah.
Nurturing a new generation of Baha'is who are ready to take ownership of the faith's development.
That's a great way to put it. And this focus on training and capacity building was another key factor that contributed to the success of the 1996 framework.
It makes so much sense.
It wasn't just about changing structures. It was about investing in people.
Yeah, you can have the most brilliant organizational structure in the world.
Right.
But without the right people to bring it to life, it's just an empty shell.
Exactly.
So we've got this shift towards grassroots empowerment, the global expansion of the Rui Institute, this incredible emphasis on training.
Yes.
Anything else?
Yes.
What other changes did this new framework introduce?
One other crucial element was the introduction of cycles of growth.
Okay.
And this involved a systematic approach to action, reflection, consultation, and planning.
Wait, hold on. Cycles of growth. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Is this something similar to project management cycles or those continuous improvement models used in businesses and other organizations?
You're absolutely on the right track. The Baha'i community drew inspiration from various sources.
Okay.
And they adapted and refined these concepts to fit their unique context.
Right.
The idea was to create a rhythmic and dynamic process where communities were constantly learning from their experiences.
I see.
And evolving their strategies.
So it's like a feedback loop, right?
Exactly.
Action leads to reflection, which leads to consultation and planning,
which
then informs further action, and the cycle continues. What I love about this is that it's inherently iterative.
Yes.
It's not about getting things perfect right away.
Right.
It's about constantly striving for improvement.
Exactly. And that spirit of continuous learning and refinement was at the heart of the 1996 framework.
I'm seeing how all these pieces are starting to form a cohesive picture. Decentralization, empowerment, training.
Yeah.
And a cyclical approach to growth.
Right.
But I'm still grappling with why 1996 is seen as such a pivotal moment.
Okay.
What were the long-term impacts of these changes?
Well, let's unpack that.
Okay.
1996 wasn't just about tinkering with the mechanics of administration.
Right.
It was a paradigm shift.
Okay.
The profound change in the way the Baha'i community understood its own growth and development.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
What were the key outcomes, the ripple effects of this paradigm shift?
First and foremost, it led to a surge in individual initiative and ownership.
Okay.
Baha'is around the world felt empowered to take action to contribute their talents and energies to building vibrant communities.
So it wasn't just about following directives from above anymore.
Right.
It was about individuals stepping up and taking the reins.
Exactly. And the sense of ownership had a transformative effect on the community's dynamics.
Yeah.
People felt a deeper connection to their faith and a greater sense of purpose.
Right.
They weren't just members of an organization, they were active participants in a movement.
That makes so much sense. It's like the difference between being a passenger on a train and being the conductor.
Yes.
When you're actively involved in steering the course, you have a much greater stake in the outcome.
Precisely. And this shift in mindset wasn't limited to internal matters.
Okay.
The 1996 framework also encouraged Baha'i communities to engage more deeply with the wider world.
Right.
To contribute to the betterment of society as a whole.
This is where the social action aspect comes in, right?
Yes.
The Baha'i Faith has always emphasized service to humanity.
Yeah.
But it seems like 1996 marked a turning point in how that principle was put into practice.
You're absolutely right. The framework encouraged communities to identify social issues in their local areas and develop projects and initiatives that address them.
I see.
Drawing on the Baha'i principles of justice, unity, and collaboration.
So it wasn't just about spiritual development anymore. It was about actively working to improve the world around them.
Precisely. And this focus on social action became deeply ingrained in the Baha'i community's DNA, shaping its identity and its contributions to society.
This is all so fascinating. It's like we're watching a time-lapse video of a community transforming itself, becoming more dynamic, more engaged, more impactful.
Right.
But I have to ask, were there any unintended consequences of this shift?
Well, as with any major change, there were certainly growing pains and adjustments along the way.
Such as? What kind of hurdles did the Baha'i community have to overcome?
One of the biggest challenges was ensuring consistency and alignment across different clusters.
Right.
With so much decentralization, it was important to maintain a sense of unity and coherence.
I see.
To avoid fragmentation.
I can imagine that could be tricky.
It was.
How did they address that?
They relied heavily on the principles of consultation and collaboration.
Okay.
The assemblies played a key role in facilitating communication.
Right.
And sharing best practices between clusters.
I see.
And the cyclical approach of growth allowed for regular reflection and adjustment, ensuring that everyone was moving in the same direction.
So it was like a delicate dance, finding that balance between autonomy and unity.
Exactly. And it was a dance that required constant attention and refinement.
This is all so illuminating. I'm starting to grasp the magnitude of the changes that took place in 1996.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about structures and systems. It was about a fundamental shift in mindset and approach.
And that shift had a ripple effect that extended far beyond the Baha'i community itself.
Oh, I'm intrigued. How did this impact the wider world?
Well, as Baha'i communities became more engaged in social action, their efforts started to attract attention and recognition from individual and organizations outside the faith.
So they were becoming known for their contributions to society, not just for their religious beliefs.
Exactly. And this growing visibility led to increased opportunities for collaboration and partnership, amplifying the Baha'i community's impact on a global scale.
I'm sensing a whole other layer to this story unfolding. This is incredible. Tell me more about these collaborations and the wider impact of the 1996 changes.
Well, that's a story for our next segment.
Okay.
But first, let's take a moment to appreciate the sheer foresight and planning that went into creating this framework.
Absolutely. It's remarkable to think about how much thought and effort went into creating a system that could empower individuals and communities to contribute to the spiritual and social transformation of humanity.
And that's precisely what makes 1996 such a powerful story.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the power of vision planning and collective action. It shows what's possible when a community comes together with a shared purpose and a deep commitment to creating a better future.
Okay, so we've explored kind of the nuts and bolts of this monumental shift in 1996.
Right.
The move towards grassroots empowerment.
Yeah.
the global reach of the Rui Institute, the cyclical approach to growth. But what I'm really hungry for are the stories, the real-life examples of how this all played out.
Right.
You know, what happened when these ideas met the messy reality of communities around the world?
That's the exciting part, isn't it? Seeing how abstract principles translate into tangible change.
Yeah.
And trust me, the stories are out there brimming with hope and resilience.
Okay.
Let's start with one that really resonated with me.
Okay.
It takes place in a rural community in the United States.
Okay.
Before 1996, the Baha'i presence there was small, scattered.
Yeah.
But as this new framework took root, things started to shift.
Okay, I'm all ears. What happened?
Well, a handful of dedicated individuals, they decided to take this concept of cluster development to heart.
Okay.
And they began by organizing study circles, offering children's classes,
Right.
creating spaces for junior youth to connect and learn.
Right.
You know, those core activities that build the fabric of community.
It sounds like they were starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Building a foundation from the ground up.
They were.
What were some of the early challenges that they faced?
One of the biggest was simply overcoming inertia.
No?
They were trying to plant seeds of something new in a community that was used to doing things a certain way.
Right.
You know, there was skepticism, even resistance from some.
Yeah.
But there was also this kind of quiet yearning for connection.
Right.
A sense that something was missing.
So they had to tap into that yearning.
Yes.
Show people what was possible.
Exactly. And they did it through action, not just words.
Right.
They created a space where people felt welcomed, where their contributions were valued, where they could learn and grow together. Right. Gradually, more and more people were drawn in.
Yeah.
Not through proselytizing, but through the sheer magnetism of a community in action.
It's amazing how powerful that can be, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just the act of creating something positive.
It is.
Something life-affirming.
Yeah.
Can draw people in like a moth to a flame.
Absolutely. And as the cluster grew, it wasn't just about numbers.
But
People were experiencing personal transformation,
Right.
finding a sense of purpose and belonging.
Right.
And their collective efforts began to ripple outwards, impacting the wider community.
Can you give me an example of what that ripple effect looked like?
Sure. One initiative that really took off was a community garden project.
Okay.
So they transformed a vacant lot into this thriving space where people could grow food, connect with nature, and learn from each other.
Right.
And it became a hub for the whole neighborhood, not just Baha'is.
Wow.
Breaking down barriers and fostering a sense of shared ownership.
That's beautiful. It's like the garden became a symbol of their collective effort.
It did.
To create something beautiful and life-giving.
And that's a theme we see repeated across many stories.
Okay.
You know, this framework wasn't just about inward-focused growth.
Right.
It was about channeling the community's energy outwards.
Right.
Contributing to the well-being of society as a whole.
Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. Do you have any other examples that highlight this outward-facing aspect?
Absolutely. There's a particularly moving story from a village in India.
Okay.
They were grappling with poverty and illiteracy,
Right.
and inspired by these principles of social action,
Okay.
a group of Baha'is decided to establish a small school.
A classic example of grassroots initiative. What was their vision for the school?
They wanted it to be more than just a place to learn the ABCs.
Okay.
You know, their curriculum emphasized moral development,
Okay.
critical thinking skills, and the importance of service to others.
Right.
They believed that education should empower children to become agents of positive change in their communities.
It sounds like they were weaving together the Baha'i principles with a really holistic approach to education.
They were.
How did the community respond?
At first, there was skepticism.
Okay.
Some parents were hesitant to send their children to a school run by a minority religious community.
Right.
But the Baha'is persevered,
Yeah.
building trust through their actions and their genuine commitment to the well-being of the village.
It's incredible how transformative that kind of trust can be.
It is.
Especially in communities where there's a history of division or suspicion.
Absolutely. And as the school gained a reputation for excellence,
Right.
more and more families enrolled their children.
Yeah.
But the impact went far beyond the classroom walls.
Okay.
The school became a catalyst for community development initiatives, literacy programs for adults,
Wow.
health workshops, even microloan programs to help families break the cycle of poverty.
Wow, that's a powerful example of how a single initiative can spark a chain reaction of positive change.
And it all stemmed from that 1996 framework, which empowered individuals to take ownership of their community's development.
These stories are so inspiring. They really paint a vivid picture of how the abstract ideas we discussed earlier actually translated into tangible results. But I'm curious, what about the challenges? We've talked about successes, but surely there were setbacks and obstacles along the way.
Of course, no journey of transformation is without its bumps in the road.
Right.
One of the biggest challenges the Baha'i community faced was learning to navigate the complexities of diversity. As the faith spread to new cultures and contexts, it encountered a wide range of perspectives, traditions, and social norms.
It sounds like a recipe for a potential conflict.
It can be.
How did they approach those differences?
They relied heavily on the principle of consultation, which emphasizes respectful dialogue, active listening, and a willingness to learn from each other. They recognize that unity doesn't mean uniformity. It's about embracing diversity while finding common ground and working together toward shared goals.
So it's about finding that delicate balance between holding on to your core principles while also being adaptable and responsive to the needs of different communities.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing process, a constant learning curve. But the Baha'i community's commitment to unity and diversity has been one of its greatest strengths, allowing it to adapt and thrive in a wide range of cultural contexts.
This has been such an enlightening deep dive.
It has.
I knew 1996 was significant, but I had no idea just how profound its impact has been on the Baha'i community and beyond.
It's a story worth sharing, and one that I believe holds valuable lessons for anyone seeking to create positive change in their own communities.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking us on this incredible journey.
Of course.
Through the evolution of the Baha'i Faith's approach to growth and development.
It's been my pleasure.
It's given me so much to think about.
It's been a joy exploring these themes with you and our listeners.
And to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive as much as we have.
Yes.
We've explored the hows and the whys of this turning point in 1996. But what truly brings it to life are the stories.
Absolutely.
So our parting thought for you is this.
Okay.
What seeds of change might you plant in your own communities? How might you tap into the power of collective action to create a world that reflects the principles of unity, justice, and love?
Good question.
We encourage you to continue exploring these questions to show your own stories and join the ongoing conversation about how we can build a better future together.
Absolutely.
Thanks for diving in with us.